Good evening, and thank you for watching. My name is Dan Shear, editor of the Green Valley News and the Sahuarita Sun, and I'm going to be the moderator for this evening's forum. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor of this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections hosts debates so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. Candidates who have a contested general election have been invited to participate. The questions that will be asked this evening are coming directly from voters. Leading up to the debates, Clean Elections conducted outreach to voters across the state, asking for questions for the candidates. Additionally, Clean Elections surveyed voters to learn what issues are important to them. This survey data, along with input from journalists at the Arizona Capital Times, Arizona Agenda, and the Green Valley News and Sahuarita Sun, have been utilized to guide the discussion so it best serves voters. Of course, we want to hear directly from you, the voter. So voters who are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by email. Email it to debates@kc-a.com. That's debates@kc-a.com. You can text to 480-808-1814. That's 480-808-1814, or you can call 480-937-1253, 480-937-1253. We screen questions for clarity to illuminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. This evening, we have just one candidate who agreed to the forum, so we'll be keeping this to about a half hour. We may not get to all the audience questions, but we're going to do our best. Tonight, we'll be hearing from a candidate in Legislative District 19, which includes Green Valley, part of Sahuarita, along with Sierra Vista, Safford, and parts of 5 counties. Our candidate this evening is Sonda Clark, a Democrat running for a House seat. 2 other candidates, both of them Republican incumbents, declined the invitation to tonight's forum. We'll give Ms. Clark 1 minute for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement as we wind it up. With that, Sonda Clark, you may make your opening statement.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Ms. Griffith. Good evening, Mr. Diaz. I'm sorry that you are not here in person, but maybe you are watching. Good evening, everybody that tuned in. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I am Sonda Clark, running in LD19 for a seat in the House, because I think after 20 years, Cochise County deserves to have a Democrat representing them. I'm not born in this. I was not born in this country. I was born in Bucharest, Romania, and my family fled Romania, so I would have the opportunity to grow up and develop the best that I could be in the free world. And it is that motivated me to enter this race, because our freedoms have been chopped away for the last several years. Maybe it was long in coming, but it's become incredibly apparent and heartfelt of what's going on. Our rights, benefits, and freedoms are on the ballot this November. Democrats will try and protect our freedoms to breathe clean air, to get affordable health care, opportunity for education for everybody of the highest level, and decide whether or not and when to grow our families. For all these freedoms, I want to fight so all of us have a chance to live the lives that we imagined possible in this great country and this great experiment that I desperately want to keep. Thank you, and I hope you'll examine my opinions, my thoughts, my feelings, and you'll decide that I'm your candidate and give me your vote in November. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Clark. We'll start with abortion, which has been a top drawer issue this campaign season. On Saturday, all abortions became illegal in Arizona other than to save the life of the mother. This happened when a Pima County judge allowed a decades-old ban to be reinstated after the Roe decision was overruled in June. It mandates up to 5 years in prison for anybody who helps a woman obtain an abortion. What are your thoughts on the Arizona decision?
I'm absolutely horrified. I am not of bearing children age any longer, but I cannot help but think of the grandchildren of people my age who are just growing up, who are going to have lesser rights and protection than we have had all our lives. What really is bothersome in all of this, it's the fact that Roe has been precedent, every single Supreme Court justice, when they came before the Senate, they all said, oh, Roe is precedent. We are going to respect precedent. In essence, that's lying under oath, which is a terrible thing, a terrible example to set for when you are in charge of administering the laws. In my view, abortion care, reproductive care, it's a privacy issue. It's our right to privacy that all of us cherish and should be left to the person able to carry the child, the person that impregnated the person to have a child, and the doctors. I don't think that anybody should advocate for birth only. I mean, what is the problem? That when you impregnate a woman, and many of the people in Arizona believe that life begins at conception, they are unwilling to provide once the child is out of the uterus. And to me, this is not being pro-life, it's strictly being pro-birth, and I have a real problem with that.
Okay.
So I am pro-life, outside the uterus included, please.
Okay. The Democratic candidate for state attorney general says she will not enforce the law, the new Arizona law, citing that a state constitutional right to privacy includes reproductive rights. Would you support her stand not to prosecute?
Absolutely. Without hesitation.
Well, okay, the state legislature is the one who makes the laws. So what she's saying is that she is not going to enforce the laws that you would be making if you go to the legislature. You're okay with that on this particular?
I'm okay with that because I am okay with that because this is a law that they have reintroduced from the 1800s. We are 2020. This is laws are to be amended. Can you believe if you believe in the Bible and you want to be a religious Jew, you want to live the same way they lived during the Bible times, not light the stove and not have a hot meal in the dead of winter? I don't think so. We need to adapt laws for the time that we live in, and we want to go forward, not backwards.
Okay, this question came in from a reader this evening. It says, what is your position on the Rosemont copper mine? Do you believe it to be good, bad, or are you unsure? And let's actually expand that, not just the Rosemont copper mine, but also the Copper World project, which is going to be on the western slope of the Santa Ritas.
Yeah, well, I just had the privilege to visit the area just about last week. And what horrifies me is that we live now in a time when the only thing that has value and merit and consideration is profits and making money. Once you deface the Santa Ritas, for example, that is not going to return to the beauty that we have now. And, you know, I think it is important to kind of ponder what are we valuing in this life while we are alive? What is most important to us? What are we taking with us to the everlasting world once we have gone from here? And to me, money is not what follows us, is our memories, is our experiences, is breathing the fresh air, is looking at the beautiful sunsets and sunrises that are available in Arizona for all of us to enjoy. So I am really opposed to it. I can't believe that it was stopped for a while and now it's beginning again to do work up there. And it not only that it defaces the beauty of the nature, that it interferes with the wildlife that exists here, but it also affects our health. The air that we breathe, all the debris that comes out there from the mining that they do there, it affects the quality of air that we breathe. Many kids have asthma now, and this is not a help in any way except for those who invest in this enterprise and make money of it. What also bothers me is that the people who own those mines now, are not even Arizonans. you know, and most, if you go up there and you see who the workers are, because they say they always claim they provide jobs, but not all those who work up there are Arizonans. Many of them come from Canada and elsewhere. So I'm not in favor of it, no. And I think there is more to life than just making money. And we are creative people. We can figure out better ways to make money. You know, it's a difference between those scammers who make a lot of money or working honestly. If they would take if scammers would take their talents and apply them to an honest way of making a living, they would be very rich as well. I'm against it.
The proponents of the mine would say that what is being pulled out of the ground there, the copper, is necessary for us to have a brighter future with electronics, etc. Do you buy that?
Might be, is that the only place in the world where there is copper to be mined? I'm not sure. I don't know that. And secondarily, how about all the water that they are using that is in such scarce supply? And we are made aware almost daily in the news of what's happening with water in Arizona. So I would say let the Canadian people find other resources for mining copper, not in my Santa Ritas. Thank you.
The economy is top of mind for everybody with inflation, and now we have the sagging stock market. What can you do? And this is a broad question, I understand,
Yes.
but what can you do in the legislature to ease the burden on Arizonans who are dealing with inflation?
Well, first of all, let's analyze inflation. Have you ever heard of the billionaires? Has Jeff Bezos ever heard him complain about inflation? Elon Musk, has he complained about inflations? I don't think so. I think part of what you have to examine, and I'm not saying that inflation doesn't exist because I've gone to the store and I know what's happening to things that used to cost $1 and now $3. I'm not poo-pooing that at all. But let's be honest here and analyze how much profit has been made because of the COVID and all the other, like the war in Ukraine and other things. The gouging of the gasoline prices, it's ridiculous. I mean, they've made more, the companies, Exxon and all the others have made so much profit like never before. If they were to be, but you see that it comes back to what we value, and do we value each other, and do we feel obliged that there is more to life than just making profits hand over fist for ourselves. It's caring about our neighbors. That attitude of caring about each other is kind of not so present in our lives anymore, and I mourn that.
So then you're suggesting then that there is some part of inflation that is manufactured, it's not real,
Correct.
and people are pocketing the money.
Correct.
Okay.
I think part of inflation is due to greed. Yes.
Okay. What is the most significant economic policy Governor Doug Ducey has created in his 8 years as governor?
That is really a tough one. That's a tough question. Can you repeat it again? What is the most consequential that he has made policy?
Yes, a significant economic policy.
Well, I will tell you, it's his attitude towards public education and teachers' pay. To me, to have a good area where companies want to move into, you have to have an excellent public education and schooling. Arizona is 48, I believe, and when it comes to quality education, and I believe teachers pay is 49. So so the entire career, he's aiming towards the bottom. So I would say that this is probably one of the worst policies that he has ever introduced, was the universal vouchers. And the insisting on keeping the certain moratorium about how high we can spend per student. That's another thing that really worries me, and that is the incredible desire to privatize everything, privatize the prisons, privatize the school system, privatize Social Security, privatize Medicare, everything to be privatized. Why do you think that is? Only one word I will answer that: profit. Profit above everybody else worth being. So that, I think, is probably the worst policy that he has ever made, is depleting and trying to defund public education. Long-lasting impact.
We mentioned earlier that LD19 includes parts of 5 counties. It's a big district. How do you plan to stay current with the constituent needs and just up on what's important to them? How are you going to be in contact with them?
Okay, so let me tell you, first of all, I've been in every single one of these countries, not once, but many times. I was just in Douglas past Sunday. I was in Bisbee, even though Bisbee is not a part of our district, but that's where was a presentation on water in Arizona. And the AMA. So I went to Bisbee, probably this is my third or fourth time. I'm going to be in Wilcox over the weekend for the parade. I'm going to be in Safford again. Probably this is the fourth time of me going to Safford. So how am I going to keep in touch with them? Differently than the current representatives they have. I intend to answer every single email that would be addressed to me. I intend to hold town halls. I don't believe that currently either one of my competitors has held a town hall during their it was in recent memory. In fact, everybody was amazed that they showed up for the meet and greet presented by the Chamber of Commerce last 2 weeks ago in Sierra Vista, because they said they never come to anything. So I intend to do town halls. I intend to answer every phone call. I intend to visit, and I intend to be in touch with those who are making key decisions about what's missing in our district, because local people like the town hall, like the mayors, like people who are like Miss Clay, who is in charge of the public education in Cochise County. I met with the president of Cochise College. They are local. They know what's really needed, and I intend to keep in touch with them and get their advice and advocate and negotiate on their behalf to get things done for them, not for the big guys, not the cooperatives, not the big farmers, not those who promote and buy politicians. I intend to be a politician for the people, because my tagline says, a candidate of the people, for the people, by the people. I truly believe in that.
If you are elected, but the Democrats are still in the minority in the state legislature, how are you going to reach out across the aisle to get something done?
Well, I know one Republican politician that I can't wait to meet, for example. That's Regina Cobb. She has been trying to institute an INA, which is not as perhaps stringent as an AMA for her area. And guess who opposed it? You guessed it. That bill never got a chance to pass or to be read. So I will look for people who truly are in Phoenix because they want to work for their people, not their donors. And I seek them out, and I think together we can come to resolutions that will benefit our residents, people in our constituents, I should say, not residents, but constituents. Yes, that's how I'm proposing to do. Because then I really don't believe there is a difference between Democrat and Republican, independent, libertarian when it comes to what we need, what we wish for us and our families out of life. We all want our kids to have a great education. We want to feel safe on our homes and our streets. We want to drive on decent roads. We want to have good health care that doesn't bankrupt us. We want to have good food that we can afford to eat. We want to make a decent wage. What's the Republican or Democrat in all those wishes? Nothing. The only difference is that some politicians work for those who put them in office, and some politicians are in office because they want to really serve. They really take their public servant definition literally and want to deliver on that. And that's the kind of politician I hate the word politician, because number one, I'm not a politician. I've never run for office in my life before. So I'm truly a newcomer to that. But I would like to be that kind of representative for the people, for those who put me in office, for those who gathered the signatures, for those who contributed the $5.
You mentioned the acronym AMA a couple of times. Why don't you explain?
AMA.
Yeah, AMA.
AMA.
Yes. Why don't you explain briefly what that is?
Okay,
Yes.
So I can tell you what my definition is. I can go. I have some written down from professionals, people who are hydrologists and who have studied this for a living. But since this is a small time, I'm going to tell you what I see in an AMA, why I think it's important. We are almost at a time where there is no return from running out of water. So an AMA, it's not a solution. It's just the beginning to bring together different representatives from the public, from the science world, from the business world, come together and figure out how we can monitor the consumption of this very precious resource, our water, which is life. And so it's equitable for all of us, not just some of us. And so an AMA, it's an active measurement area, would simply monitor those who consume a lot of the water and make them accountable. So we know how much they take out and how much they put back in. And they are going to, first of all, stabilize, no new irrigation, no new consumption once the AMA is voted in. And then try and figure out what is the most equitable way that all of us can participate, including conservation, including all whatever it's necessary in order for us not to run out of water. Water is not it's a finite commodity. Like life is not infinite, neither is water. So we need to treasure it, we need to take care of it, and we need to be decent about not just profiting from it, but also sharing in it.
Okay, AMA.
So that's what an AMA is.
Right, active management area. Is there a specific infrastructure project in the district that you would like to make sure gets state funding in the coming year? A specific infrastructure project?
I will tell you, in Cochise County, low-income housing is a wait of 3 years. So I would like to work with whoever becomes the new mayor of Cochise County, with stakeholders in that area, and work on making sure that all the necessary resources to improve the situation and to ease the scarcity of low-income housing. A person shouldn't have to wait 3 years to be able to afford to live, to have a roof over their heads. That's one project that I would like to make sure that it's really nurtured. And the other thing that really preoccupies me very much is that, the rural area for long have been denied decent access to healthcare. I mean, in Douglas now they have telemedicine. However, if you've got a tumor growing someplace, telemedicine is not helpful. You need to have somebody who touches you to feel if it is a real tumor to worry about, or it's just a lump, or what. So I would like to see a great deal of attention being paid to improving the healthcare in my rural counties. So they don't have to. I have a friend who lives in Safford, who I'm a friend, I met him through my run there, and he has just been diagnosed with melanoma, and he has to come to Tucson all the time for treatments. When you are sick, traveling 2.5 hours to get treated and then go back another 2.5 hours is not a pleasure, and it's not cheap, and it's not comfortable. So these are two areas that I would really like to make sure that change is felt right away, that we are working to make sure that people can feel a difference.
Well, you mentioned affordable housing and you'd like to work with leaders on that. Do you have a specific plan to tackle that issue?
Specific plan? I don't have a specific plan. I have to see who are the builders that are willing to make less profits and to build for the poor, because most of the time there are lots of, and this is Gail's actual area of expertise because she's a real estate person, so I'm sure she knows lots of developers, but I'm interested to work with people who are interested to perhaps retrofit existing buildings into low housing apartments and so on and so forth. So depending who the new mayor is, I'm sure together we can come up with a smart plan. They've got a couple of very good, smart people running.
Okay, survey respondents in a poll conducted by Clean Elections regularly cited prescription drug prices as a major political concern for their household. Can the state do anything to help alleviate the costs?
Yes, elect Democrats, because in the most recent bill that just passed, it was passed in Washington, D.C. with only Democrats. Not a single Republican voted to make sure that insulin is now maxed at $35. There wasn't a single Republican who voted for it. And I do have to say that I really, really, really have a hard time calling some of those people Republicans, because there were so many Republicans that I really loved and admired. And one of them is Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. These are true patriots. You know, I don't understand why today, if you're an opposition party, you have to be belligerent and you have to advocate for fights and taking over, you know, through real fighting. I mean, they advocate, you know, getting on the streets. They advocate civil war. I cannot understand how anybody can be in Washington, D.C., especially somebody like Chuck Grassley. He's an old man. He should know what it's like to need medicine, because when you get of a certain age, you need medical care. So how can they vote against the ability of the government to negotiate for insulin price to go down, or any of the other medicines to go down? I mean, it is ridiculous that I go to Nogales to get my teeth cleaned because it's so much cheaper than I can't afford it to go in Tucson or in Green Valley because it's just too expensive. Why should it be? I don't get it. So yeah, I think that's the problem, is that unfortunately the Republican today's Republicans, I don't want to call it, because Reagan's Republican, Goldwater Republicans were different, but today's opposition party, I call them that, the opposition party, they don't really want to work for the people. They are working for the big pharma and the lobbyists and those who put huge sums of money into their coffers, and that is unfortunate.
Looking back at the last 2.5 years of COVID-19, are
Yes.
you satisfied with how Arizona managed the pandemic?
I don't know that it's an Arizona issue. It's a federal issue, right? I mean, we got the vaccines and they're available, and there are now meds that can help you if you get COVID. I have a hard time understanding why people are anti-vax, but I know that many are, not just in Arizona, but you know, in Australia and other places throughout the world. And I completely respect choice, because that's part of freedom. And I'm a huge believer in freedoms to be respected. However, I would like to ask people, what's the difference between protecting people against getting a disease that potentially can kill them, which, you know, Herman Cain died because he attended the Trump rally and, you know, he wasn't protected and he died from it. Why should I mean, he was okay, pretty old, but I mean, he could have had a few more good years to enjoy life. You know, now polio is coming back, like in New York, they found it in the sewer waters and stuff. I mean, I think that vaccines have saved us a lot of grief and improve our quality of life. What I have trouble understanding is why somebody feels that their preference, they don't mind that their preference would possibly cause somebody else's death. And they have no problem with that, especially when they are pro-life. That I have a problem, because again, it's this selfishness. It's just thinking about me and my desires and my wishes, and they take preference over everything. We live in it would be so nice if we could be kinder to each other. I remember Bush said a gentler, kinder, what he was hoping for. Do you remember when Bush was saying that when he was running? He was preferred gentler, kinder attitudes. And I cannot say how much I wish that we could remember that and return to that attitude, to be gentler and kinder to each other. We have it only each other, really.
Well, a half hour goes quickly. We're going to have one more question and then give you a couple of minutes to wind it up. Arizona's Constitution, the state constitution requires college to be, quote, as nearly free as possible. Do you think we're there? And if not, how would you reel in tuition costs for Arizona students?
I don't know what the cost for to ASU is now. And I know that University of Arizona is pretty low. It was like 5,000 or so a year or two ago. All I can tell you that when I taught at Wesleyan University in Middletown, tuition was $45,000 a year. So if you take this, and I think Harvard is now about $60,000 a year. University of Connecticut, which is a state school, is about 15 or 20,000 a year. So I wish I could say that I believe that if you went to the university and got a college degree, you'd be all set for life. It's no longer the case. So I believe that we should have equal sympathy and love for trade schools. You know, when you go to a college conservatory, being a musician, I can relate to that. That's a trade school in essence. You go to study ballet or violin or piano, and that's pretty much what you concentrate on. Well, there is no saying that concentrating on how to become a great welder or a great electrician or a great plumber should be any less distinguished. And this at least offers you, once you graduate, it offers you the opportunity to really survive because you can get a job. While if you are an actor and you go to Columbia and you get your, or Juilliard and you get a degree in acting, you are more assured to become a waiter in New York City than to have than to become a superstar. So I do believe that education should be probably, I don't know if it should be free, but I think it should be scaled to the person's income. And people who are low income or people who are like DACA students, they should get equal in-state tuition, and they should not have to have the carry a debt for $30,000 or $40,000 when they get out of school. And that kind of impacts how you're going to live your life, being able to buy a home or have a family or whatever. I do think that education should be responsible, that if you go for 4 years and you get a degree, you can also make a living afterwards. And I don't think that most liberal arts schools for sure are not providing that assurance that you go to school, you get a degree, and then you can make a living, especially if you study philosophy, for example.
Okay. Ms. Clark, we have touched on quite a few topics, and I know we could go a lot longer, but we are going to keep this at a half hour, but we're going to give you 2 minutes for a closing statement.
Okay, so as I said, I grew up in communist country. I don't want my country, Arizona, to become that. I definitely hope that it never comes to our shores. This election is a clear choice between Americans who work for a living, who want the best for their families, and those who really believe that the rule of law only applies as they go along, as they make it along, and nothing matters to accomplish your goal. Everything doesn't matter. You can accomplish it by force or by lying or by promoting lies, or they don't, remember Daniel Patrick Moynihan said, you are entitled to your opinions, but not to your facts. And since our past administration, a lot of people have chosen to live in alternative universe and facts. So most Americans want to provide for their families and create a better future for their kids. And unfortunately, our counterparts prefer to support and give kickback to corporations and block every bill to lower drug costs, to deliver clean energy, and to create good jobs. I don't want our freedoms, from banning abortion with no exceptions, to ending Social Security and Medicare, to allowing politicians to overturn the will of the people with no regard for your vote, to become the normal. So I'm hoping that you are going to be with me, a true patriotic Americans who love this country, who want democracy to remain our way of life. And I'm hoping like crazy that you are going to give me your vote this November. Thank you.
Okay, this concludes our debate. Sonda Clark, we thank you for participating. To the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch and inform yourselves before the November 8th general election. As a reminder, the voter registration deadline is October 11th, and early voting begins October 12th. All registered voters can participate in the general election. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for official, accurate voting information. You have a great rest of your evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.